But the Jesus I have is such an improvement over the Jesus that is publicly presented.
Well, yes, and my thoughts and ideas and concepts are improving as I turn loose from some of these things that I've had to live with all my life.
Certainly.
And the more you realize they're man-made, the easier it is to turn loose of them.
There's sometimes you've got to stretch things. If a person were to ask me, do you believe in Christ? No, we just discussed the meaning of the word Christ. I've got to say yes. Certainly I say yes. Because if I say no, it's much farther from the truth than it is if I say yes. I got put on the spot the other day. A fellow says, now just what is your religion? I said, well, I'll give it to you real straight. I'm an anti-Protestant, non-Catholic Christian. I said, you figure that out.
Something from you. What did Jesus condemn the Jews for? What was his condemnation of the Jews?
He never did condemn the Jews. He condemned their leaders for knowing better and for lying to the populace. For conning the Jews. He never condemned the Jews or any other people. He condemned some of their leaders who knew that some of their scriptures had been adulterated and claimed divine inspiration for them.
I don't know why I thought that he condemned them because they were not believing that he was the Son of God.
Well, he tried to be logical. When they said he worked by authority of the prince of devils, he said, well, this is kind of inconsistent now, isn't it? He never condemned any people in mass. How could he? How could he condemn the Jews without at the same time condemning Peter? Well, he was a Jew. And so were his apostles, and most of his followers were Jews. There were only a handful of Greeks.
He was after the common man.
That's right. But some of the people at the top knew better. They were not sincere in their actions. They knew better. He didn't condemn people for evil, but he did condemn people for deliberate falsehood and for dissembling. Jesus could hardly condemn any group of people in mass. Because each human soul stands on its two little flat feet on its own in terms of balancing out life.
Well, I didn't read it.
You know?
During his talk.
Let's go on a little farther while we're at it. What does the word Christ mean to a Jew?
Well, to me, you explain that how it goes.
It doesn't mean the Messiah to a Jew. He understands the word Christ is used by a Christian. Oh, we should read Sholem Asch's Introduction to the Nazarene. In the introduction, he tells how he was introduced to Christ. It happened many years ago in Warsaw. He was outside of the ghetto, dressed in his Sabbath best, going to call on his uncle. He was a lad of about 5. And some Polish boys got a hold of him and called him Christ killer and rolled him in the dust and spoiled his Sunday best, Sabbath best, hardly, until he admitted that he was a Christ killer. This is a little 6-year-old boy meeting Christ for the first time. This is a Jew's introduction to the word Christ. It means something different to a Jew, doesn't it? And what do you suppose the word Christ meant to that 6-year-old boy in Warsaw, Poland, long ago?
He was a prophet to the Jews, wasn't he?
Mostly they just like to forget him. What did the word Christ mean to, in the 12th century, the 13th century AD, to that group of Jews who barricaded themselves in their temple because they were being besieged by the Crusaders on their way to the First Crusade? And they decided to have a little practice run on these people who'd lived there for centuries. And when they broke the temple doors down, they found every Jew dead. They had killed themselves rather than submit to forcible conversion. What did the word Christ mean to that group of Jews who appealed to the sporting instincts of a German baron and who gave them a castle to defend? And they defended that castle against the Crusaders and weathered the storm. What did the word Christ mean to those people? These are interesting questions to pursue. There wasn't a Jew alive in that temple. The men killed the women and children, and then killed each other until the last Jew committed suicide, rather than submit to forcible conversion. What did the word Christ mean to the Saxons when in the 9th century Charlemagne came through there with fire and sword, and they did accept conversion or death? What did the word Christ mean in the 9th century AD in the Ukraine to the Khazars, hard-bitten horsemen who'd come in there and who were caught between the millstones of Mohammedanism with Allah and Christianity with Christ, and they elected to become Jews as a compromise? The only mass conversion the Jews ever made was the Khazars in the Ukraine. And many a Russian Jew hasn't a drop of Jewish blood in his veins. I've never met but one who knew he was descended from the Khazars. He's coordinator of fashion and richest department store in Atlanta. We know he's a Khazar. He's an Orthodox Jew. What does the word Christ mean?
Yes, it opens up an awful lot of avenues to pursue.
I often think of that temple in the Rhineland, that Jewish synagogue. When they broke the door down, there wasn't a living Jew in the confines of the temple.
How many of us would give our lives for our beliefs? Have someone else's beliefs.
The one that gets under my skin the worst is a little 6-year-old boy being beat up by a couple of Polish Christian lads. So he says, all right, we killed him. This was his introduction to Christ, and he puts it in the introduction to the book he wrote on the Nazarene.
Sure depends.
On your perspective. Or it depends on whose ox is being gored, I guess. To put it in simple English. As I read this blue book, the essential to survival is the acceptance of sonship with God. It's as simple as that. Now, there's a corollary. You see, it starts out with Luther's doctrine of faith. But it doesn't stop there. It goes on to the Roman Catholic doctrine of good works. If you accept God as your Father and acknowledge yourself as His Son, this must be true of other people then. And sons of a common Father are brothers.
Now, would that automatically say you and he are brothers?
Yes, I'm Jesus' brother. I'm not Michael's brother. Oh, yes. I am the brother of Joshua ben Joseph. When I want to really be sure we're talking about the human Jesus, I like the term Joshua ben Joseph.
That's
Joshua, the son of Joseph. That makes it very distinct. Yes, I'm Joshua ben Joseph's brother.
Now, Bill, you may not want to claim sonship, brothership with all of us around here, but you're my brother.
Well, we're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And as I look, well, I feel like what Cain had said when he wrote up his religion. I'm terrified at the thought that all men are my brothers, but it must be so. It's inescapable. I try to love all my brothers. I cheerfully confess I can't like them all.
But you try to love the God pregnant in them, you put it that way.
Right. I'm willing to try.
Yes.
I'm willing to try. But I don't think that this feeling that we're all brothers should cause us in any way to be stupid. Said Jesus, go into all the world, preach the gospel. Dumb ignorance, male, female, old and young, Jew and Gentile. Said Jesus also, don't waste your efforts. Cast not your pearls before swine, lest they turn and rend you.
Let's see what.
Turn and rend you. Said Jesus, be as harmless as doves. Said he also, be as wise as serpents. Said Jesus, render unto God the things that are God's, and pay your taxes. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's.
And don't speak.
If a conscientious objector would just read that admonition, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, how could he be a conscientious objector?
Well, your admonition about dealing in realms of theology, just so that become useful in any avenue of life.
Certainly.
You always go back.
Listen, Jesus' teaching is characterized by such sanctified horse sense.
Yeah.
You could build a very practical civilization on Jesus' teaching. Jesus never condoned one guy killing another guy, but he never said the state couldn't defend itself by force. He just said this is not a personal thing. Jesus didn't condone owning private property, operating in a profit. But he just says, now please, be a little ethical. Just because you control it doesn't mean you own it. I've often thought just about all that I really own is my pocket money. We want to shoot craps or play a game of poker, I can afford to lose this. This is casual money. No strings on it. But as you go beyond your pocket money, increasingly there are ethical and moral strings that attach to that money. You control it, but should you gamble it away? No. Other people are involved. What kind of money are we talking about? Just like, is it before or after taxes? Those are two different kinds of money, as I'm sure we all know.
Pervaded and not pervaded.
Yeah.
We just need to stay like Jesus more. More and more and more and more.
You study the life of Jesus as your basis, your foundation. You recognize that, well, here, Jesus himself taught two levels of ethics. He said, if you want to represent me in the world, to be an apostle, then you must love men as I have loved men, which is a fatherly love. Now, I said, if you want to be my follower, then you must love men as you love yourself, or love them as brothers. But fatherly love and brotherly love are two entirely different kinds of affection. He never asked the multitudes to love as he loved, but merely to love as brothers love. To those who essayed to represent him, he said, you must love as a father loves. as I have loved. He said, these are your credentials. Let's have a break.
And it would do you one harm than good.
I'm sorry I asked.
That, I think, is their apology for how they organized it.
What year? Well, I asked.
Why did they write it this way?
Oh, why did they go? Yeah. I wanted to say just,
warm that up.
one place referred
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir.
We are sure because we'll never quit while we're winning. You can't possibly get any better. Do more good.
Bill?
What?
The other Bill.
Oh,
What's the score now, Bill?
7-5.
Oh, I hope it makes
Still
more
75?
I have number 3.
5. It can be. Sounds like it's been pretty interesting. Field goal and safety.
I've often compared this book to a symphony. It's written more like music than like a textbook. You have themes that are picked up, they recur, they're amplified, they're modified. And I've got some musician friends who tell me that if I knew more about how they wrote symphonies, I'd realize how much
Well, you're right.
more true the statement was.
That it really is.
Yeah.
Not only that, you got it in movement.
You didn't get any man,
Mm-hmm.
You have it in 3 movements.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you missed many Mays.
And there are themes on that that come into the, well, they appear all the way through.
Sure. I think of it, I got to get stuff real simple to get a feeling for it. I think of the 4 parts as one, the big picture, the biggest picture. Then a hunk of it, the local universe. Then our world, then one life. It's a narrowing focus. You start out with the macrocosmos, and you end up with a single human life 1900 years ago.